Where can you find 6,000 local businesses with just one click? EverythingMidmo.com.
Hello, welcome back to the Columbia Daily Tribune's Behind the Stripes webcast. Today we're going to discuss the Nevada game in a little more detail today. Going in this season, Nevada, some big things were expected of them. I think they were picked second in the coaches poll in the Western Athletic Conference, behind only Boise State. Right. Their quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, was the preseason offensive player of the year in that conference, but they go to Notre Dame and lose 35-0, then they lose to Colorado State last week, so they're 0-2. Is this a team that can give Missouri fits or not?
I would have thought so a couple weeks ago, but they've just really struggled. And on defense, their secondary was just shredded against Notre Dame. A very good quarterback in Jimmy Clausen, I think, is comparable to Blaine Gabbert for Missouri. So they really never got into any kind of offensive rhythm in that game from looking at the box score and seeing a little bit of that. You know, Nevada historically is a good running team. They were one of the top 10 rushing teams in the country last year. But when you fall behind right away, that kind of goes out the door, like it did last year against Missouri when they got behind quickly. So that kind of took away their strength. And then to see them lose at Colorado State like that, just offensive problems up and down. They've had 8 turnovers, I believe. They don't have any takeaways on defense, so -8 in the turnover margin. That's never good. A lot of penalties, I think 15 through 2 games. So they've moved the ball pretty well between the 20s, put up some decent yards. They get in that red zone, though, and they were just shooting themselves in the foot continuously in both of those games. So I think that might make this game maybe a little scarier because they have shown that they can move the ball and they can do some good things on offense, but they just got to fix those problems, and maybe it might tend to a younger team like Missouri to overlook them a little bit since they're 0-2, but we'll find out soon enough.
I did see some of that game against Notre Dame, and what struck me was the way defensively they kind of let little plays, short passes turn into touchdowns.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have a problem in that way, you could have trouble with Missouri because they're going to throw a lot of short passes, and you're going to have to come up and tackle guys, and if you miss them, you're going to be in trouble. Missouri only a 7-point favorite, though, which tells me that the odds makers are giving quite a bit of credence to the setting of this game. It's a Friday night. It's going to be an unusual setting for Missouri on a Friday in Nevada, a place they've never been. And this is obviously, I think the game, you don't want to say this is the game on Nevada's schedule they've been pointing to because they went to Notre Dame, and that's probably the game they were pointing to. But,
right.
But I think as far as a home game goes, this is going to be a big night for them.
I'll be interested to see what the atmosphere there is like. I think their stadium seats 29,000. There's been some talk on the Reno newspapers' message boards and their comment sections that some fans have gotten together and want to boycott this game, Nevada fans, because they're upset with the start to the season. So if you take a few thousand away from that 29,000, you essentially have the same amount of opponents' fans that Missouri had in the Illinois game. So I don't know if it's really going to be that intimidating of an atmosphere.
Sometimes, though, I think the really dead atmospheres can be the weirdest of all for a team that's used to playing in front of big crowds.
I think this game kind of reminds me of Chase Daniel's first year as a starter when they played at New Mexico. A decent team, decent program. But it's a good road game, a good road test, and I think this is similar to that one, and Missouri played well in that game and won. So that's kind of the game that this reminds me of a little bit going in.
Last year, Missouri beats them 69-17. They were winning 40, I believe it was 45-17 in the third quarter, and they fake a field goal, scored a touchdown to put them up 52-17. To me, that was kind of a Bush League move. Whether Nevada is a good enough team to make them pay for that, I don't know. Do you see that as a source of motivation? I mean, it seems like in college football, everything is every perceived slide. This is a genuine slide.
I'm sure it's been brought up a lot. I remember at the time when it happened, we all kind of looked around in the press box thinking, gosh, Missouri's going to have a fairly young team next year. They have to go to Nevada. At that time, we didn't know it was going to be a Friday night game with a lot more attention on it. And I think we all thought, man, a veteran coach like Chris Aldham, he's going to remember that and use that as motivation for his team. But then you look at them, they're 0-2, they're struggling just to score right now. Maybe that falls off their radar a little bit, and they're more worried about just trying to score some touchdowns rather than trying to, rub that in Missouri's face. So it'll be interesting to see, after the game, if whether Missouri wins or loses, if that comes up at all.
It seems to me that sometimes coaches probably, they spend a lot of time looking at film, and then they see something that they think is going to work, and it just kills them to not use it, even if the situation doesn't call for it. And that probably was, I think, the case then.
Yeah.
But, you know, this isn't a rival school. I could see if it was against Kansas and you're recruiting the same kids, and there's an advantage to you to kind of humiliate a team.
Right.
Obviously, Missouri has nothing against Nevada, and they don't even compete for recruits. So
right.
Didn't make a lot of sense, but again, we'll see Friday whether it's a close enough game to where that matters. Lastly, we're going to go to viewer mail.
All right, we got a good question this week from Steve in Kansas City, and he wants to know a little bit about the NFL and its collective bargaining agreement, which is kind of up in the air right now. But if you look at what's going on in the NFL down the road, a lot of juniors and eligible sophomores could leave their schools early because of an expected strict rookie cap. Looking at Missouri's roster, Steve says he only sees Derek Washington, the tailback, as being the only one that might consider this option of leaving early. I'd be surprised if he left, but if he has a strong conference season and blows up in a bowl game, do you think he'd leave? Probably not. I don't think Derek Washington right now looks like a guy that's a really enticing NFL prospect. He's the first to admit he's not the fastest tailback on this team. He struggled in 2 of Missouri's 3 games this year. Against Illinois, he struggled a little bit. Last week, he didn't have his best game against Furman. So I don't think he's a guy where the NFL is really on his radar right now. And, you know, the thing about Missouri is that so much of their talent is so young. And they've got a few seniors that I think could maybe have a chance. Janair Alexander, maybe Curtis Gregory. But I don't know so much about guys that could leave early, be eligible this year. You look at the roster, guys like Tim Barnes, a center. I think he's a guy that likes college. I don't see him leaving early. You don't see a lot of offensive centers leave school early. Luke Lambert, Andrew Gatchkar, they're still just kind of becoming starters and regular players. So I don't think that's going to be something that will affect Missouri. I think it could other programs. But this is a year where I don't see it being much of a factor. Maybe 2 years ago when Missouri's got underclassmen like Chase Kaufman, William Moore, Chase Daniel maybe. You know, I think maybe they would have looked at that a little bit heavier than the group this year.
I guess maybe the question would have been a few years ago, like Sean Weatherspoon would have been the classic guy, a 3rd-round draft pick. What he was projected to be. That's kind of would almost be like the dividing line for me.
Right.
If the cap is that big of a deal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us again. Next week we'll be back to discuss the Nevada game, and we will not discuss another game because there isn't one the following week. So we'll just talk in extreme minutiae detail about the Nevada game.